Today on Lightning Bugs.
I do want an audience to understand what music therapy is because I think it's widely underestimated and widely misunderstood.
When someone isn't able to speak, they're still able to sing. So it's like bridging that gap and having them rehearse through a pretty tedious process. It's like a 7-step process of relearning phrases so that they have like phrases and words in a new bank.
And the wick.
Yeah, the arcuate fasciculus. That region is what the music therapist taps into to reconnect with language.
Today's guest, Maegan Morrow, is on the crest of what I believe will be a very long wave in healing, and that is the field of music therapy. Music therapy is cheap, very effective, and it's very smart. We're working increasingly to increase the awareness of music therapy, get it accredited in more universities, and most importantly, to get it insured. Maegan Morrow is famous for having helped Gabby Giffords, the Congresswoman from Arizona, when she was shot in the head. She had serious aphasia to the Broca's area, which meant she couldn't speak. They tried everything, as you do in these situations, and the last part of everything was bringing in Maegan Morrow, who within 15 minutes had her speaking. Let's speak with Maegan Morrow about that and much more.
Hey, you.
Hey.
How's it going?
It's great. It's Friday.
Is it Friday there? I think.
Yes.
What day is it here?
Oh, yeah. It's different there. You're just starting
It's
your
Saturday
day.
here.
I'm ending my day, my Friday. Wow.
I was talking to John Batiste yesterday, and he just finished work, and he's like, "Yeah!"
Exactly.
And I'm like, "Good morning."
You're like, where's the coffee?
And I was going to ask you about your love of heavy metal,
Oh, wow.
but you've already showed us.
Yeah, it's weird because I didn't listen to a lot of Kiss growing up. It's just, I like their look and the makeup and the whole glam thing. So it wasn't really as much about the music with that band particularly, but the way they marketed themselves got me. So I guess it worked.
But you would have been like, you weren't even born yet.
How old do you think I am? I dye my hair.
Can I answer that? 25.
Oh, sweet. No, I was born in the 70s, so I did, MTV was a babysitter in my life, so that influenced me a lot. I was a latchkey kid, and I watched MTV and Sesame Street.
When I was a kid, I loved Kiss. Well,
Nice.
I liked one album of theirs,
Okay.
Destroyer.
Right, okay, cool.
You never saw, so you're in the MTV generation.
Mm-hmm.
I never saw really artists moving, or artists, let's just call them rock stars, moving on television. Like you only saw them on magazines, and they said Kiss is going to be on TV tonight without their makeup.
Whoa.
My parents let me stay up. It was about 10 o'clock at this point, and that hadn't come on. When it came on, it was an interview, and they had their backs to the camera.
Oh my gosh.
I was so upset. You do that to kid.
Oh.
Anyway, you grew up studying music?
Yes, I, studied piano really early on. Probably around 8 or 9, I begged my parents for a piano. We've talked about my love for Steely Dan. I think Donald Fagen was a big influence in that. I knew that he was writing the music with a keyboard, or he was always lead singing with a keyboard. And he wasn't really doing intricate stuff. Somebody else took care of that in the band, but he was just able to lead and, write. And so I was like so impressed by him. I wanted to do that. And so I begged for a piano, and then I got it. Then I had to start practicing. And then I got sick of it, of course, immediately because it was hard. And thank God my parents said, no, you're going to practice every day. We're going to sit here and listen to you. They were very musical. So like music was happening all over the place, and I was learning to sing during that time. And, I think that's just who we all are.
I have a lot of people ask me about that. Should they discipline, like I would know, but should they discipline their kids push them into music lessons because they don't seem to like it, or should they just let them do what they want to do? And I think your example is pretty typical, and I think the right thing. Your parents should discipline you some to do the things that you start to do. I mean, if you buy a puppy, you got to take care of the puppy, and if you start to take piano lessons, you've got to practice.
I've read some research on, having students or children learn and let them develop, take the lessons, even if they're bad, like if they don't, you can tell they don't have the talent, pushing them to do it for at least 10 years so that the brain can kind of, work and communicate, build some neuroplasticities. And then it's going to help you with other things in life, like empathy. That's what that research showed. But now that I'm a parent and I've put my own child in lessons, it's like, dude, I don't know if I want to force her to do this classical style. I kind of want things to happen organically for her musically. And I don't want her to hate music either. So like, I'm always in this in-between of like, what should we do with this?
I think they should be exposed as much as possible. And that actually does a lot. If a kid is hearing music that you think is good and they're absorbing it, doesn't it have to come back into, it has to help you long term. I mean, hearing Bach, you don't have to play the 3-part inventions, but you do hear that there are 3 distinct lines to go. And if you're hearing that at 6 years old, certainly that's an advantage. Yeah?
Yes, I agree.
I do want an general audience to understand what music therapy is, because I think it's widely underestimated and widely misunderstood. I've sat on panels before with some very well-meaning, actually, politicians and administrators who go to bat for music therapy. Their version of it sounds like some kind of 1950s shit. It does not sound like what you have done and what you've described to me and other people I've seen and read about. I just want to let you give me the sort of idiot's guide to the state of the art of music therapy in 2021.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of times people confuse, music therapy with like maybe someone that's providing music to bring a therapeutic process or bring wellness, that sort of thing. But a music therapist is someone who's been trained to promote like a therapeutic relationship, to work on goals that might be in the cognitive domains, mental health, physical domains, psychiatric, that sort of thing. And we have extensive training and in the university level, but also in practicum and internship experience. And we do take a board certification with our, state. So there's a validity to it there. And you've heard me talk a lot about neurologic music therapy, which is sort of separate in that it's evidence-based practice and it's specific techniques that were designed first or initially to help those with neurologic impairments like brain injuries, Parkinson's disease, stroke, and that sort of thing. But as the imaging came around in the 90s, the fMRIs were able to show more about what the brain is doing, even with those without those injuries, maybe those in the developmental stages. And looking at people with injuries can show us what the brain is actually doing, the mechanisms that actually work in all of our brains. So I believe that the evidence-based practice is what people want to know about in 2021. And so I guess that's what you're referring to.
It is. I mean, I think I want people to understand that it is it's based in science, it's practical, it's accredited, and I hope that insurance pays for it too. Someone's getting their gait back after an injury, and if they're trying to just get it a couple clicks faster, just to get more motion, get those quick twitch muscles firing and get going and remember how to walk. Because anyone who's ever been on crutches will realize how hard it is to even remember how to walk, which is strange. Okay, so what I've seen is music being used to basically fool the patient into speeding up. Because like, you know, if you measured, they came in and they're walking at, I don't know what, maybe 80 beats per minute or something like that. I don't know how fast that actually is.
Yeah,
but
that's pretty normal.
if they're
80
walking,
to 100 beats.
So let's say you need to get them up to that, then you could basically fool them through music, but it's not just like something that I could do. I mean, there's a method to it. So I guess what I'm trying to paint is a practical situation where a very simple technique can be used, and there's nothing like it otherwise. So you can't take a drug to walk faster. You can't have someone say, "Hey, why don't you walk right?" Music therapy actually seems to pull this off all the time. Could you describe what the technique is and how you see it work?
That was a good example there. Like, even in the absence of attention, you know, directing someone to do something and they can't actually follow your commands, and they're able to speed up despite. So what's happening is subcortically, like in our old primitive brain, which is connected to the cerebellum, the lower part of the brain, and the spinal cord, which controls your motor system, that is the area that is responding or is having your motor system respond to that auditory input. So when you hear a beat, a strong beat in the environment, and especially in like Western music, we are usually doing songs in like 2/2 or 4/4, you know, and that's like a pattern for walking, just like side to side, right to left. Our brain's auditory system picks that up immediately, and it sends messages deep to that primitive brain and the cerebellum, and then to the spinal cord, and then to the extremities. You use the word fooling them, and I say that too. I say manipulating them, and that almost sounds negative, but it's not really a negative, you know, in this situation. I really am like a force on their body. What we do, it is like a strategy there. So I'm trying to match where they are and the pace that they're at, whether it's slow or fast. And then I will gradually change that speed. And what the research has showed is that just increasing it or decreasing it by like 2 to 5%, your brain isn't like processing that you're changing that. The deep part of the brain is doing that, is starting to entrain. So it's not like you're aware in your higher areas of your brain. You're just kind of being controlled by that force. And so we get into a new step of, we call it frequency modulation. So I might be increasing the velocity, like you were saying. We're at 80 beats and now we want to go up to 100 beats. And I don't have to verbally tell them. They don't have to understand. If they had like an attention deficit, or, you know, the frontal lobe is shut down and they can't understand language, their deep brain can understand the music element, language, I guess you could say.
As the defense attorney for music therapy, if I'm hearing right, what my client is trying to say is that there is a science-based method with evidence that is using music to cue a result that can't be cued with, I mean, I'm all for drugs and stuff, but every tool has its place.
Right.
And I guess what I want to keep pounding in people's heads is that tools like that, what does that cost somebody? How invasive is that? Who got cut? Like the whole thing, like that is so smart. And it's one of thousands of examples of things that you actually do.
Right.
When you're talking about the I guess the limbic system, is that what you call that? And
yeah, well, I was talking about like the auditory system and then the deep brain systems. The limbic system is also tied to that, and really tied to like emotional systems too. So that is another layer to this. I mean, we're talking about just the rudiment of, you know, rhythm, the beat, but then the limbic system might be involved in, you know, the actual song layered on top. Like if I'm playing chords with that, or I'm singing, "Oh, when the saints go marching in," as we walk down, like all those layers are going to invigorate and motivate the person as well, which is a whole nother level of this that needs to be researched as well.
Yeah, I mean, listening to something that is a song that you like, that's at 80 beats per minute, is certainly preferable to sit there with tick, tock, tick. That drives you crazy. I want to take a moment to thank one of our show's sponsors, Sony Electronics, for providing me with amazing Sony AX3 cameras that I use to capture video in my makeshift studio. A few years ago, because of my interest in photography, I was approached by Sony Electronics to be a member of its Artisans of Imagery Club, testing new cameras when I'm on tour. I've spent a life in the darkroom and with analog old film cameras. I'm now using their cameras to shoot my podcast series. That's what this is. The AX3, part of Sony's Alpha product line, is a great camera, lightweight, easy to operate and maintain, able to capture the highest quality video for podcast video streaming. So whether you're an amateur photographer or a pro, check out the Sony AX3. You won't be disappointed. To learn more, visit sonyelectronics.com. That's sonyelectronics.com. I would add to that I'm a total photography snob in that I'm really picky about the equipment that I use. Has just always been part of the art and the hobby to me. These are a little bit of a revelation because of the quality and the fidelity that you can capture super quickly. If you've got an idea, you can get it. Okay, let's take this to the peanut gallery to get some comments and questions.
Hi, Ben. Colin from Wisconsin here.
Hi, Colin.
I'm new to the Patreon family, so I apologize if similar questions have been asked in the past. However, I'm an avid piano player and an aspiring music producer on the side. That said, could you touch on the producers with computers that have mixed your shitty tracks? How extensive is your production experience? Your role on Kesha's Rainbow, for example? Do you have any experience working in digital audio workstations? And lastly, over the years of making music on your end, how has production technology and mixing methods changed on your albums?
Is that all? That's a lot. And I would happily talk about all that for 3 days. Let me see if I can condense that a little bit. The man is quoting from my song Rock in the Suburbs, where I say, "Some producer with computers fixes all my shitty tracks." I wrote that in 2000. I had never worked in the digital domain. I'd only recorded in analog. We have to remember that was very new at that time. I sent that demo to the producer who I'd chosen, who I knew was going to record this in Pro Tools. Most records are recorded now in Pro Tools, which is the digital audio workstation you were mentioning. I sent him my tape that had that line in it, and he called me up, a little concerned, I think. "You do realize that I fix shitty tracks in the computer. You understand that?" It's like, yeah, I get it. My experience in production, yeah, I mean, I've been involved in my record production since back before I was making records, when I was still waiting tables and making 4-track records. Recording has always been a very big part of my process. Analog was always very good at capturing an event because by necessity, in order to create the sonic movie, an event has to be captured and it couldn't be manipulated all that much. Analog is about the event. Digital is about the idea and the perfection. The two can work together great, but a producer becomes even more important to discipline an artist so that they have some sense of accountability in the moment. When the red light comes on in your recording, there's a certain amount of nervousness that fills the room. That's a lot more when it's analog because you know you have to get it right. If I listen to an old 78 RPM record, it's like, say it's Blind Benny, blues guitarist. It's been dead for 40 years. I'm hearing that day. I'm hearing that moment in that artist's life. I sort of advocate for production that keeps the event in mind a little bit. Thanks for your questions, your thoughtful questions, and good luck in all your endeavors, piano and recording. Thanks, Colin. Like as a musician, what I notice, especially in the world of latency and digital recording, is that it takes a moment for me to orient sort of what I feel like is a feedback system in my head to what is what I'm touching, the piano or drums or something, tactile, what I'm hearing, and to get that synced up. What's going on there? Like, I have a moment of confusion when I sit with a pair of headphones and hear a new environment. And I play ahead of the beat and I play behind the beat. And then some conversation happens in my head. And I'm like, I got it.
I mean, I think it relates to what I'm saying with the motor system being entrained. It's almost like you're being controlled, and the muscles need to do that over and over and practice it to where it's easy for it to sync up and have like the strength and the coordination.
Yeah.
So like drummers are phenomenal because they've done that over and over. I mean, any instrumentalist is, but like you can see it really apparent in the drummer motor system because they've done it that same spot every time. And that's another part of this, is that when the rhythm is in the environment, it actually helps your movements to be consistent. So when you're hitting that drum pad or snare, you actually are hitting in almost the same exact spot every time when rhythm is present helping you. And so the drummer
the same
has
spot
done that.
Of the beat.
And even of the placement of the instrument. You were talking about hitting a target. Like even the target is being hit almost at the same exact spot because you've done it so many times with a rhythmic stimulus helping you throughout, the months or years. With a patient who isn't like a pro musician doing that, if I have a metronome or some kind of hard beat in the environment, the upper extremity is able to do that as well and be more consistent with their placement. When someone isn't able to speak, they're still able to sing. So it's like bridging that gap and having them rehearse through a pretty tedious process. It's like a 7-step process of relearning phrases so that they have like phrases and words in a new bank and building a new pathway so that their language centers, have words again and not just singing to everyone.
And the vic, or wick.
Yeah, the arcuate fasciculus. I think you made up a little song about it. Yeah, that region is kind of what the music therapist taps into to reconnect with language. So retrieving lyrics or music from the other parts of the brain, the arcuate fasciculus, it's hard to say, is what is helping to build that neuroplasticity so that the language can come back.
Is this what we think of as association then? Like if I can sing all 50 states, but I can't say all 50 states in school, are we talking about the same thing?
I think that is somewhat similar. Yeah, it's kind of like a rote memory that you had done it so many times. It's memorized and it's embedded in other parts of your brain, like your limbic system, connected to emotions and memories and that sort of thing. So maybe it is.
Maybe just because I'm music centric, but if I had painted or put a different color or something to each state or a different shape, I would find that very hard to remember. But actually, music allows me an association to that, at least for me, and I think maybe for a lot of people, is much easier to recall. The music helps you rather than adds an extra thing to remember. It's more information, but it seems to help you.
I think the entire brain is working to help you remember that information because music is in most of your brain. It's not just embedded in one side. And I think maybe that's what you're getting to, is that there's not just one little area that is controlling music. It's in these deeper regions and spread throughout. So maybe when you learn that song, it involved your entire brain. And so you can retrieve it if you lost it before.
Are you hoping to hijack usable brain for as long as you can in order to get a result? Like, then what's happening? So you walk in and you see, okay, his right side of this guy's body is not happening, and these other things, you get some indication. Then what's your next step? What are you thinking?
The next step is, what am I going to work on first? There's so many things going on. And usually I want to work on their ability to communicate, whether that's verbally or through gestures. Because I want people to not be frustrated that they can't tell you what they need. And I want to teach them how to advocate for themselves without anyone around. And so, especially like in this time, there's no family around when people are in the hospitals. So learning to speak or communicate again is like one of the first things that I want to attempt.
Wow. Yeah. I didn't even think about that. That's a whole...
Yeah, I didn't either. So I learned it by working in a rehab. I didn't learn this in music therapy school. I learned everything by working in the trenches in the hospitals with other therapists. I learned that from speech therapy, honestly. Like, okay, we got to get their speech, and we can't let them compensate by just maybe spelling it out or writing it out or using an iPad. We need to work on it and do the repetition, just like we were talking about, practicing your piano every day. We need to build the pathways and now rebuild the pathways so that we can get it back. So it's just a lot of work so that you aren't compensating later and just stuck at a level where you're maybe just typing what you want to say. I wanted to just go back to the left domain, controlling language. If you're a musician, you were talking about you possibly having a brain injury. You already have music in the left domain as a language. It's like when you learn Spanish or maths or music, that's obtained usually in that left domain, just like our spoken English language. And so if that was damaged, then singing with you might not actually work like it did with Gabby. Because
interesting.
I'm trying to retrieve things that are kind of mixed up now. And so we found that with Broca's aphasia, the MIT and the singing doesn't necessarily work with a musician. So I would start working on something else with them.
I think that using music for something other than, selling T-shirts and shaking your ass, is pretty creative way of using it.
Yeah.
So then with Gabby Giffords, and this is the famous case, kids, for you, those of you who weren't around for this yet, was 2011.
Yeah.
And Congresswoman Giffords was shot in the head in a parking lot doing a press event, correct? Mm-hmm. You ended up working with Gabby, and it made a lot of news because you got results. Just kind of walk us through that, if you would. Tell the story of it. Tell us the story of it, Maegan Morrow.
Yeah, I think January 2011, she was shot, and I saw it on the news, and I was, we were all, just stunned. But then when I saw that she had lived and had gone to a hospital and is, dealing with these neurologic issues, I am watching from home going, wow, I hope she comes to us or to some kind of rehab that does what we do, because I know what she needs, And
let's go back to us just real quickly.
Yeah.
This is your gig.
The Institute for Rehabilitation and Research. Gotcha. It's called Tier Memorial Hermann, and it is a brain injury and stroke and spinal cord injury program for rehabilitation, physical medicine. Right. And so we have an interdisciplinary team there of physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, and music therapy as part of the standard program. So when I saw that, I was like, I want her to come to us because I know that we will be able to help her get moving again and get back to what she does, And so when she came, the speech therapy department immediately got me on board and was asking me to see her just to see if she would respond to any singing, because we knew that yet again, that language area is what had been damaged through a gunshot wound. And it actually presented very similar to like a stroke, where it affected that one other side, the opposite side of her body, and, left her speechless. So I knew that those NMT techniques that I had learned that help with these specific areas would probably get her speaking again. And they did. She eventually started humming and singing and talking. It was a long road. I think she was with us for at least 6 months of just, a lot of this tedious rehearsal for her speech and for the rest of her body. I even did a lot of the rhythmic auditory stimulation for her gait training as well. I tried to work in every domain for her recovery. And, she's still recovering, but she's able to walk and she's able to communicate, and she's still advocating for her causes even today.
Was the Congresswoman a fan of music or a musician at all? What did you know about her music background, or what might work with her before entering the room?
Yeah, so before I entered the room, one of her friends was there, actually had borrowed my piano and was playing musical theater songs with her. So that immediately gave me a clue. Oh, okay, she likes music. She has friends that are involved in music, and they're all about it. They aren't afraid or weirded out by doing music therapy or singing, in a hospital. So that gave me a cue. And then I interviewed her husband. Yeah, something like that. Chicago. But, that was just giving me some ideas. I was like, okay, we can go into that genre. But then when I walked into her room and I started interviewing her mom and her husband, I could see her CDs, and she was listening to rock music, U2. She loved Bono and another band.
Calexico.
Yeah. I was like, okay, that's really like a dynamic group, because they've got a lot of like Latin percussion and rock kind of blended, fusion. So I was like, okay, she's open to all kind of stuff. We can get crazy in here. I can bring my bongos and I'm going to be okay. And then I think there was another element, is that I always ask, like, if they have a music history, if they've learned an instrument, because that might be motivating, or it might be an automatic thing. When you put that instrument back into their hand, their muscle memory or motor memory can just kind of start firing again and get her moving. So I learned that she had played the French horn in the past, and she had been in a lot of musical theater, productions when she was younger. So those were the things that I tapped into immediately and started singing familiar songs from those genres, started playing the music in her room when it was appropriate. I had her involved in actually playing on instruments, and then using those real basic elements, like using a metronome or a guitar to help her walk and entrain to the beat.
I could go into my an injured friend and start playing the music, and there's no harm in that at all. But you actually understand the neurological side of it, and there is a method to it. And I keep saying that because I just want people to understand that it's awesome to play someone, walk in and go, one singular sensation, and like, hey, they're up and going.
Yeah.
But it's not that simple. Two things that I do with each guest. One is we do what I'm calling New Week's Resolution, a creative exercise that you make up.
Okay.
For all of us wannabe creative people out here. That's me. I do them all. Because I want to be creative, and I'm not always creative. And it's good to have exercises. So I want to get your exercise, whatever you think we should be doing that's achievable over the course of this week. What you got for us?
Okay. So I think I'm kind of stealing something from my cousin that
awesome.
I've been talking to her through Marco Polo throughout COVID. It's an app where you just talk to each other through video. There's no texting or writing. You have to just look at each other's faces and talk. So we're both parents of little children, so we don't have time to talk on the phone. So we talk through Marco Polo whenever we can. And she is a songwriter. She's a singer. I'm a music therapist. We collaborate sometimes, but I don't write my own music for myself very much. I'm always writing with my patients, and that is very like non-threatening to me and not very vulnerable for me personally. So she's also learning to write novels and books and things too, and she's in some training classes. And so I have expressed my issue with myself and that I want to get better at being vulnerable and writing songs or just anything down. And so something that she taught me to do that I think other people could try this week is just writing anything down that you're thinking about. Maybe it's like a journal style or something that you want to make up, like a poem or a verse to a song. Maybe just even like write your dream, like what you dreamed the night before. And because I'm so afraid of it being not good enough or perfect, I was taught by her to just write it down and then crumble it up and throw it away.
There you go. That's what I like about this. So they're going to write down.
Yeah. Just get it out, write it down, even if it's like for a few seconds or maybe a minute.
When do you do this, in the morning?
Yeah, I think if you want to start with just like write down what you just dreamed or what you think about your dream, it could be something that you do in the morning, like before you start your day. Or it could be like at the end of the day when you're like, okay, I just want to get out what, I'm thinking about, and before I go to bed and get it off my mind, write it down and then crumble it up and throw it in the trash.
Okay, so here's how I interpret that.
Okay.
Because if it's not specific enough, I won't do it.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure I do it.
Yeah.
Here's how I'm going to do it.
Okay.
I'm going to wake up in the morning and I'm going to write either my dream, first thing I'm thinking about, a little bit like the morning pages in that Artist's Way book.
Yeah.
But the point is because I'm going to crumble it up and throw it away, it's okay if it sucks.
Yeah.
It's okay if it's really revealing. So the point is, it's training wheels or a baby step into being vulnerable.
Yes.
So it needs to be something that you really want to make sure you crumble up.
Yeah.
So
maybe something personal.
So, do that in the morning or before you go to bed at night. Sheet of paper, write a shitty or vulnerable or revealing, terrible thought or idea, own it, crumple it up, throw it away.
Yep. That's it.
Kids, you know what to do now. I don't know if you recall this, but I had a friend who was in a coma, and I'd called you for some help with him. He's good now.
Good. That was years ago.
But they didn't know he was sort of potentially locked in. Like they didn't know if he was in there.
Right.
He's not saying anything, and of course, the doctors aren't sure if the reason that he's not responding is because there's nothing to respond with, or if he would like to respond and can't. Right. So, but what struck me was, a lot of the things that they were doing sound even more primitive than playing bongos. I mean, they were poking him and yelling at him and stuff because they're trying to they want to agitate him. So even though it sounds like playing music for someone, it's like, well, that doesn't sound all that scientific. I mean, the neurologists were poking him with sticks and stuff and screaming at him because they were trying to get a reaction.
That's noxious stimuli that's usually used. And my noxious stimuli is usually just like really loud drums, or maybe I'll bring an amp and a electric guitar or turn on some metal, like just to get them aroused. It's a noxious, like auditory way of doing it.
I'll give you some of my solo vocal tracks from my albums. Exactly. The stuff with no, just soloed vocals, no reverb or anything.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, you'll wake
use
some
that.
motherfuckers up with that.
Yeah. I'll take it.
Here was my unanswerable question is, well, two parts. One, can you imagine a time where there's almost like music therapy CPR, something you can do yourself? I'm on the way to the hospital and I'm aware I'm having some kind of stroke. Is there a brain exercise that I could do to prepare myself for what might be coming to help head it off or to help a music therapist?
I like that. Like almost like a preventative playlist that you may design and put on your phone, because we all have our phones with us. And like if something like that happened, maybe it's, some of your favorite tunes or something with like a upbeat thing that could, okay, I got to start snapping my fingers. I got to use left and right. I have to clap.
Right.
I might need to tap to and like, hey, we've rehearsed this. We stomp and we clap. And then we sing along. And, you've done it so many times and you have that playlist with you. Your family even might know to turn it on. Oh my gosh, look what's happening. Let's do it. We have it in here. It's ready to go. I don't know. You just made me think of that.
Sense.
That's cool.
Well, it just makes some sense because you always hear, especially with stroke rehab, I mean, I'm just a piano player, but I think everyone knows the quicker you can get in there, the quicker this is caught and the quicker you can start to get that stuff back, the better. So what better time than while you're having the stroke, if you're cognizant enough to do a thing, whether it's snapping your fingers, left, right. I don't know. I'd be interested in like
maybe designing
some of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know that medically they have a drug, like I think it's called TPA, that they will, give you upon arrival or in the ambulance when you're having a stroke to like make it not be so extreme. And so that saved a lot of people from getting real severe. So you're saying like on the medical music therapy side, maybe we could come up with something preventative too. I'm getting to go into a different realm of the medical system, and I'll be working with stroke victims at an earlier stage. So after they've come to the emergency department and now they've been placed in the ICU, I'll get to start seeing them earlier than I have ever seen them before. So I'll be applying music really early on. So you're giving me ideas because I might be able to, kind of tap into that and see how they react in an earlier state.
I think because music is so associated with fun, maybe part of the reason that it doesn't get taken as seriously as I think it needs to, even from an occupational perspective. It's like, I mean, let's just say I don't know, I complain about something. I don't like to complain, but let's say I complain. Most people are going to be like, oh, come on. You don't work a real job anyway, Or if I have a political opinion, that might happen.
Yeah.
And I feel that exists a little bit in a bias against a name like Center for Performing Arts Medicine.
Right.
That it's only for professional musicians who, hey, they're having a good time anyway, so fuck them. Or music therapy, which is like, okay, great, bring the bongos into the room.
Right.
And the reason that I keep advocating for music therapy is because I really feel, I feel it being written off even by people who are trying to. The last time, God, I can't remember when the last time I saw you was, but time flies and it's probably been 4 years.
Yeah, at least.
Do you feel like that music therapy has, as a science, progressed, gone far, and in its perception, like being accredited by, accreditation in schools, insurance being taken seriously? On those two fronts, are we any further along than we were a few years ago?
I think we are, just from looking at, my little world the Texas Medical Center, which is actually the biggest medical center in the world, it has done good for us to advocate, nationally, but also just within our communities. It's increased jobs in our region. So many more hospitals, they're listening to us. The doctors are being invited, and they're starting to believe because they're, listening to people like you or news articles that are showing what's happening with it. And they're inviting at least one music therapist into the hospital to start. And then they see how well it's doing, and they see how the families want more of it. And so they make a way, whether it's through, funding or some type of philanthropy, they do make a way for it to happen. And I believe, like, even during these COVID times, a lot of my colleagues are having to do music therapy through this method, like this, telemedicine. And I think, I was in a haze during COVID, so I don't remember a lot of what was going on, but I was trying to pay attention to them because I felt for them because they weren't able to work, and I believe the states opened up the ability for them to practice telemedicine. So that was a positive.
I've got two things I wanted to hit before we wrap up. One of them is my evil motivation to get more kids into music therapy as an occupation. I think we want to start catching them in high school. You just said there are not enough music therapists. So what are we going to do to spread the word a little bit more that this is a very viable thing for someone to do? When I came up, it was all about just, being a rock star and making some money. I think kids are more evolved now, and there's so many talented musicians. The value of what they have to offer in music could not be greater than improving lives, saving lives in the world of medicine.
If more artists like you, more videos, TED Talks, all of these types of things they're all like on that hub over on YouTube. If they're watching an artist that they appreciate and love, speak about it or advocate about it, then maybe they'll be privy to it or want to try it. I would say, go to musictherapy.org and you can learn more about it.
Musictherapy.org. And do you think they would answer an email for a kid that wrote and said that they were interested in being a music therapist? What do you suggest?
Yeah, they would. We have a lot of people to do that.
Kids do that. Yeah. I'm going to get you to, on your phone, video preferably.
Okay.
Give me a couple of bars of anything.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
The kind of thing, hopefully, that you would crumple up. But I don't want you to think about it.
Right.
And it doesn't need to be in tune or in time. Because if I talk to people who are non-musicians, let's say I get the chance to talk to Anthony Fauci.
Yes.
He might say, wear a mask. And then I'd have a song. It'd be called Wear a Mask. He doesn't have to be a musician in order to do it. So I'm not expecting you to show musicianship or anything. I just need a couple of bars of something that I can work with, and I'll send you a few examples of what we've been doing.
That's fun.
Good luck with everything, and congratulations on your new gig.
Thank you. When you come to Houston again, I think that we should connect our worlds of medicine and the symphony and you.
Let's do.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Make it happen.
I'm in.
Okay.
All right, you. Well, take care.
You too. Thank you again.
Maegan Morrow decided to contribute to our song over a video voice note. But Maegan is a closet, or not so closet, heavy metal fan, and she's brushing up on her drum set. So she's given me this motif. I want to rock. Well, you can't copyright a song title. Did you know that? It's true. Can't copyright a song title. That's anyone's business. But we all know the Twisted Sister song, I Want to Rock. So I want to avoid I Want to Rock. But her beat is awesome. And it reminds me of the late 80s in that Blondie, the Knack era. There's a song called Pump It Up by Elvis Costello, which kind of encapsulates that era so well. Just the crispest beat. And yeah, it's not like heavy metal at all, but it's the way I interpreted it. And I'm trying to brush up on my guitar skills, so this gave me an excuse. I just gave her a little lyrical help and sang about her T-shirt and her love for Kiss. Here's the song premiere for We Wanna Rock by Maegan Morrow and Ben Folds. Let's see what Maegan Morrow sent.
Got it. Okay, 1, 2. Maegan Morrow, she wants to rock it like Peter Criss did back in '76. Goddamn, a one-woman rock band, healing motherfuckers left and right with a wave of the hand. She puts the vintage tea in music therapy. It seems to me she wants to rock. Hey!
Hi, if you're enjoying listening to Lightning Bugs, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It helps a lot.